everyone. Welcome back to a Very Factual Podcast. We're your hosts, Kayla.
And Isabella, and we saw the Champions League round of 16 second leg take place this week, and Arsenal and Porto was probably the biggest game.
Yeah, so Arsenal played Porto and cut their win close by winning 4-2 on penalties. The game started out slow but quickly sped up with both teams attacking each other constantly. It wasn't until the 41st minute when Arsenal scored the only goal of the match to make the aggregate 1-1. The 90th minute approached and there was still a need for another goal to be scored, but the match went into overtime and both teams came close to a goal but didn't succeed. The only thing left to do was to go to penalties, and it started out great for Arsenal with Raya pushing Wendell's penalty into the post, and then later again, Raya saving Galeno's shot, putting Arsenal through to the Champions League quarterfinals.
I was very surprised how hard it was for Arsenal over these two legs, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like you look at them in the Premier League, they've just been able to put away teams so easily. Like, they're winning 5-0, 6-0, like every game. And I feel like against Porto in the Champions League, they just did not find the momentum.
They really didn't. I was looking at the stats, it's almost everything is very, very like 50-50 almost. Not
Hmm.
exactly, but it was very even. And I wasn't expecting that going into this game because Arsenal right now, like in the Premier League, like you said, they're doing great. And they just didn't
Hmm.
bring that same energy over to the Champions League.
Yeah, and I think another reason why maybe Arsenal struggled a lot was Porto have a lot of experience in the Champions League.
Hmm.
Like they got it. How do I say? I think they were way better in like extra time and stuff, and they really just showed themselves. And I think for Arsenal, it's just like they can't perform like this against the bigger teams or they'll be out of the competition. Like this, they should have, beat Porto in the leg like 3 in the first leg like 3-0. Like Porto did not let Arsenal play their game. Arsenal were very awkward and Porto had the majority of the ball and just Arsenal didn't know what to do.
Yeah, like I feel like Arsenal, they next match in the Champions League, they will fall, I think. I don't think they're going to
Mhm.
continue and win. Because at first, a few episodes ago, we were like, oh, they have, like, chance to win.
Yeah.
But I don't think they do anymore, judging by how they're playing here.
Mhm.
It's very different compared to how well they can play.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying like Arsenal are one of the favorites to win the Premier League, but I feel like me and you are in that majority that like we don't think that at all. Like I
Hmm.
just can't see that. Like I don't think Arsenal are favorites. I don't think they can win, even though they've been amazing in the Premier League. This is Europe. You're playing against the best teams in the world, and I think Arsenal lack experience in this competition. I think it will get to them. I think, like I said, I think they'll slip up against a big side, maybe even in the next round.
And I feel like they also lack experience because their players are majority, they're young.
Yeah.
So they don't have that, exposure to the game as much as other teams might.
Yeah, but you have to give Porto credit. I mean, like
Hmm.
Arsenal have been unstoppable in the Premier League, and Porto just tested them through the two legs. And Porto literally could have went through because it went down to penalties, and penalties is like 50-50. Porto, they haven't been great in Portugal from what I've heard, but I think tactically in this game, they were better than Arsenal. They really manipulated them. They were the
Hmm.
better team. And, for Porto, they should take it as a positive. They were the better team against one of the best teams in the world, and they should grow from this. And David Raya, I think he got the push he needed in this
Yeah.
game. We have not been fans of him whatsoever.
Excuse me, you have not been
Oh,
fans of him
yes.
whatsoever.
No, yes, I have not. And I just don't think he's done anything this season, but I think what he did in this game, especially in the penalties, gives Arteta almost like this like relief. Arteta can be kind of like, now, see, I told you he's better than Ramsdale.
Yeah.
But, whatever, it's just penalties, and I didn't think that meant that much.
I mean, they didn't mean that much, sure, and I hate penalties, but because they're basically free goals. But Raya, he definitely did step up his game. Like he saved
Mm-hmm.
two penalties, and the two, penalties that Porto didn't get, they weren't because it overshot the net, they missed it. They were because Raya saved them. So that should definitely be like a big confidence boost for Arsenal for future games. FC Barcelona took on Napoli in leg 2 of round 16 and won 3-1 with Lopez scoring the opening goal for Barcelona in the 15th minute, and then just 2 minutes later, João gave Barcelona their 2-0 lead. Napoli didn't give up and scored before second half to make the score 2-1. Second half started out and both teams got aggressive, but it wasn't until the 83rd minute when Lewandowski scored, securing Barcelona's win. And going into this, I assumed Barcelona would win, and they not only won, but they dominated the stats. Like Barcelona had
Mm-hmm.
24 shots and 10 on target, while Napoli only had 14 shots with 4 on target. However, possession was almost 50-50, but at the end of the day, it's the amount of goals that went into the net, which gave Barcelona their, in my opinion, expected win.
Yeah, I thought it was a very fun game.
Hmm.
Probably out of like the ties that we saw, and yeah, like you said, I expected Barcelona to go through. I think they were the better side out of the two legs. I think they've just stepped up their game. I think like in the first half of the season they just really struggled, but now they look a bit better. And Napoli have also been struggling. They just changed their manager. This guy that they have right now, he's the fourth manager that they've had in 9 months,
Oh my
which just kind of
gosh.
tells you something about their problems. I mean, they did what they could. They could have potentially went through. Like I before they played the game, I believe it was like 1-1 the aggregate. So, it was very 50-50, and
Hmm.
I think Barca's teenagers in defense, and they just really they help the side out. Like Barcelona have had a lot of amazing young players recently, like Lamine Yamal, Fermin Lopez. They have like Kubaresi now at the back, and just like I feel like Napoli could have taken advantage of that, but they just couldn't get it right.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, I feel like Barca's young players, you know how I mentioned before Arsenal has young players, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Arsenal's young players are more experienced than Barca's young players if you compare
I
them,
mean,
just
they
because
don't have a 16 and 17-year-olds running out on the field, and Barcelona
exactly,
does.
exactly. But like still, I feel like Napoli, like you said, could have taken more advantage of that and
Mm-hmm.
maybe used it. But at this point, like you said, they've been having some problems clearly within their club with their managers
Oh
and
yeah.
everything. So that definitely could have taken a toll. And you just kind of knew going into this that Barcelona would win. And if they didn't, it would be kind of shocking. But, at the end of the day, it's who won, and it was Barcelona.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned the shots that they had, and they just had a lot of variety when they were attacking.
Hmm.
Like they had a lot of opportunities, and they made the most of them. Like they got 3 goals, and I don't think Barcelona will go super far either in the Champions League. I think teams know how to create chances against them and how to really just like find their weaknesses. And actually, in the next round, I feel like Bayern Barcelona would be a good matchup. Because they have so much stuff in common. Like both managers are leaving at the end of the season. Both teams they seem very even. Like their midfield are both struggling. They have exciting young players. They have goal scorers. They're bad defensively, and I just feel like that would be a very cool match to witness.
I honestly agree with you. And before you said that Barcelona, like they might get a little further, but not super
Mm-hmm.
far. And I agree with you. Like Barcelona is a strong side, but there are stronger teams out there. So it's just a matter of time before they, get kicked out.
Borussia Dortmund would make the most out of their second leg against PSG, winning 2-0. Jadon Sancho would score in the third minute, and Marco Reus would score in the 95th minute, bringing Dortmund into the second round. I thought Dortmund started off really well. They were always at PSV's net. They could have got like 3 or 4 goals, it looked like, and it just took
Mhm.
PSV such a long time to get into the game.
It really did. I mean, honestly, this game, it's kind of what I expected. I expected Dortmund to win. But if I'm looking at the stats right now and
Mm-hmm.
I see that PSV, they dominated all of the stats. They had more, not by a lot, but they did. They had
Mm-hmm.
17 shots while Dortmund had 15, and they had 52% possession while Dortmund had 48, which is very, very similar. So this game was even, I feel like, but also I feel like Dortmund had more control
Yeah.
over the game. While it was Dortmund's game and PSV was playing it.
Yeah, Jane Sancho. probably man of the match. Like he was always helping the team out in this game. He got the goal. He almost got an assist and then he got
Hmm.
injured, which was quite sad, but he hasn't been amazing on his Dortmund return and I feel like I mean, he's gotten better, but I feel like I see him staying there. I can't see him going back to United.
I don't see him either. I mean, it was just not a good environment for him there either. But Marco Royce,
Yes.
right? His goal, it was pretty amazing
Oh
how it
yeah.
got there. Like it was there was a goal kick and then uh I don't know who, but someone headed the ball and you know, Roy's he slid in behind and, bottom corner into the net. And it was a great way to see how the entire team just kind of worked together to get that ball into the net in the
Mhm.
last few minutes.
Yeah, it was like right at the end of the game too. So
Hmm.
it was really cool and like I feel like Dortmund compared to the first half, I don't think they were as good.
No.
You know, we saw PSG dominated, and I think that is Dortmund's problem. They are not consistent. They have not been doing well in the Bundesliga. A lot of players are turning on Edin Terzic, the manager, but somehow they can always show up in Champions League. I have no idea how, but they're just like really good in this competition. And I think they had probably the easiest draw out of all the teams. I mean, you could look at Man City. They had Copenhagen, which is another easy
Hmm.
one, but I just think this is what they need to keep their season alive. They need to get as far as they can. I don't think they'll end up in a final, but maybe they can get maybe a semifinal. But you know, it's really up to them if you think about it.
I feel like they have like opportunities, but I'm not sure how far they'll get. I feel like it's another like Barcelona situation where you
Mhm.
think they'll get far, but also you don't really know because of how inconsistent they are in
Mhm.
like other leagues.
I feel like we keep talking about teams saying we don't think they'll get far, but it's like who else is there? You know what I mean? It's
True.
it's like Bayern, Real Madrid, Man City. Those are probably my three favorites, but it's just these some of these teams have to get to a semifinal. It's I feel like there's been a lot of bad teams in Europe this season, so now it's just gonna be weird.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
gonna kind of be like bad teams against like
mhm.
quote bad teams against bad teams.
The last game of the Champions League round of 16 was Atletico Madrid taking on Inter Milan. Going into the game, the aggregate was 1-0 to Inter, but Atletico Madrid found the win in this game by goals from Antoine Griezmann in the 35th minute, Memphis Depay in the 87th minute, Federico Di Marco in the 33rd minute, which meant the aggregate was all tied up. So they went into penalties, and Atletico Madrid won 3-2 on penalties. And I don't think Atletico Madrid were good in the first tie. Like I literally thought they were going to be knocked out of this competition. But I think the only reason or one of the only reasons that they went through is because they played at home. And that's what helped them because at the Wanda Metropolitano, they've only had one loss at home this whole season. And I think the fans really helped them.
Honestly, that would make a lot of sense because when you're at like, a home stadium, you have
Mhm.
all of your fans there cheering for
Yeah.
you. So it gives you a different environment and it gives you more of a sense to attack to make them, keep cheering.
Mhm.
So that definitely gave them an advantage, I feel like. And I agree with you. I did not expect Atletico Madrid to make it this far in the
Mhm.
Champions League in general, but I mean, here we are.
I know. I think in this particular game they deserve the win. Not in the last one because the last one they were very bad. And I think one of the reasons well another thing that really helped them in this game was the subs that were brought on at extra time because
Hmm.
they have Atletico Madrid have a good amount of squad depth and they had just like these fresh players come in and Inter they had their chances but it was just a matter of finishing. Like they had 15 shots and 5 on target. Atletico Madrid had 23 and 9 on target and I think Inter played well until they scored the goal, but then I just feel like they sat back for the majority of the game. I don't know what they were trying to do, but they just let Atletico Madrid step forward. Madrid took their opportunities, and that's what it came down to.
Yeah, like you said, I feel like Inter, once they scored their goal, they played more defensively and they didn't really
Mm-hmm.
take their opportunities to attack because they knew that like if they kept that, then they would have gone through. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
So they probably just tried to keep it at a 1-1 pace, but it didn't work, and they ended up, conceding a goal and late
Mhm.
in the game, which led them to overtime. And the substitutions definitely, like you said, helped Atletico Madrid.
But, Inter, you have to look at them. They let the lead go,
Mhm.
technically. They had the aggregate going for them. And I feel like if they were able to be more clinical, then they could have went through. I actually in this game I didn't know who would come away with the win at one point. Like I feel like this game was one of the more even ties. Both teams showed that they wanted it at a point, and Inter will look back and see that they paid the price for not being clinical because in the Italian league in Serie A they are literally 16 points above everyone else. So it will feel like a bad loss because they probably should have went through.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I feel like Inter could have moved on if they just pressured a little bit more towards the net, and they just didn't. They sat back, they tried to keep their, 1-1 tie because of the aggregate, they would have moved on, but because and I feel like that was their strategy to kinda just keep it, lay low, and just have Atletico Madrid, pressure, but they kept pressuring, and they ended up conceding a goal, and they ended up, losing.
Yeah, and now we move on to the next round. The Champions League draw is soon, and that is all that we have for you guys today. And during the weekend, we have FA Cup games, so that's gonna be fun. Man United versus Liverpool. That's
Yep,
gonna be
good
fun.
game. It's gonna be great. Okay, but that's it for today. Thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget to follow our Instagram and YouTube at Very Factual Podcast.